As we've had some, and we recommend you go to speaker view. And now Lauren Wood Viscardi will introduce our speaker, who she knows very well.
I do know him very well. Jeff Wood is my brother, so I feel like I've known him forever. Jeff and the people he's brought with him today are amazing resources for all of us for this issue that they're talking about today, elder abuse in terms of financial crimes. Jeff's been working at this for a long time. He has been on the Cobb Neighborhood Safety Commission for years now, and is again the chair of it. And the last time he was chair of that committee, he and I believe Joe Gavalis, we've got with us today, started the Cobb Elder Abuse Task Force, looking into all kinds of elder abuse issues that go on. Oftentimes people think of these as being physical abuse, but financial abuse is one of the biggest crimes out there. And so they've been working diligently on this, and it's been so successful that they've taken it not only from Cobb County, but made it more of a Georgia-wide type of thing that they've been working on. And today you were lucky enough to get benefit of all the knowledge that they've been collecting over the years. And with that, I'm going to let Jeff take it away, and he can give more background and introduce our other speakers.
Okay, and I think you spoke long enough that I was able to get back unmuted. Everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Jeff, you can turn your video on if you would.
Is my video on? Or no?
No, not yet.
Okay, no, that's fine, but you can all see the slide there.
But we can see the slide.
That's perfect. Okay, great. So, hey, good morning to everyone. We have a great 1 hour. We'll get off to the races here. It'll be an amazingly quick ride here. And I would anticipate that at the end, we may not have covered everything that we could, but we do have a number of resources and available to you that I will send over to the SUGA team. Links, both videos, resources in terms of brochures and different things that you can use personally, or you can use with other groups that you work with. And George and I have spoken yesterday about some of the ways that maybe we could work together to continue to get the word out here. So, yep, my name is Jeff Wood. I am, as Lauren mentioned, the chair of the Cobb Neighborhood Safety Commission. That's a commission founded back in 1999 by the gentleman down at the bottom there, Joe Gavalis. He was one of the charter members and the first chair of the Safety Commission. I'll have him introduce himself in just a little bit, but it's a 15-member commission, 3 from each Board of Commissioner member, including the chair person, we'll say, chairwoman now, chairman in the past. And we are a liaison group between the Board of Commissioners and the citizens and businesses of Cobb County related to topics of public safety. So broad brush, big umbrella, public safety, right? So with Joe, we did we founded the Cobb Elder Abuse Task Force, started from a few members, and now if you were to go to one of our kind of general sessions, not everybody shows up, but you might have 100 and 140 people or so in the room, all sharing information together. Today with me, John Tully, ADA Tully, is with us from Cobb Judicial. And thank you very much, John, for joining us. He is the current chair of the Cobb Elder Abuse Task Force. And John, I'll just have you say a few words. And if you want to tell us about brand new babies or anything like that, you can do that too.
Sure. My wife and I just had a baby boy. His name is Samuel Jacob. So we're getting used to that and not having sleep, but that's okay. But I'm John Tully. I'm an assistant district attorney with the Cobb County District Attorney's Office. I head our elder abuse and white collar section. We handle all complex white collar theft cases. And we handle all of our elder abuse cases. I come from the Cherokee County District Attorney's Office. I was there from 2015 to 2020. I headed their elder abuse section and white collar section there. We started our elder MDT, which meets a multidisciplinary team, which meets each month to staff all of the elder abuse complaints that come into the Division of Aging each month. We do the same thing over here in Cobb County. We started that in 2017 in Cherokee, and Cobb started at about the same time. I've been a prosecutor since 2005. I've also worked for DFACS as the criminal justice liaison. And so right now, obviously, we're very busy at our office with both white collar cases and elder abuse cases.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John.
Yes, sir.
And we had slated a major or a detective to be with us from Cobb County Sheriff's Office, and I'll explain that. But he's
on.
Oh, he is.
Steve Gator.
Oh, Steve. Okay, Major Gaynor. Hello, Major Gaynor. Good morning to you. So I can add your name here. Major Steve Gaynor is with us as well. And I'll explain just a quick reason. We're going to focus on financial crimes today. And although the broad umbrella elder abuse is handled by, all sorts of police, sheriff, DA, fire, EMS, a number of agencies and what have you, for financial crimes within Cobb County, the sheriff's office is tasked with tracking down the bad guys, and ADA Tully and his team are prosecuting those those individuals. And so with us today is Major Gaynor, and we'll just have Major Gaynor say hello and introduce himself. He may have been put on mute again. I'm not sure.
That's Dwight Tabor.
John, did you see how he logged in?
He is, I can see him on my screen. He's holding up a white piece of paper right now. It looks like he's unmuted and can't speak.
Okay, well, we'll.
Or muted.
Maybe he's muted. The name, is he signed in as Steve Gaynor? The name?
Yes. If you scroll through, you'll see him.
Okay, we get him.
Get him unmuted there. Oh, I can see him, Major Steve Gaynor. Yeah, he is muted. It's George, it's Major Steve Gaynor. Yeah, and he's got a official uniform on there. Yes, to unmute.
There you go.
There we go. Hello, Major Gaynor. Good morning to you. Great.
Thank you. I kept trying to tell you I was locked out.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you're like, please let me in.
Hey, thanks for inviting me to this. I'm in charge of community engagement and work closely with the fraud unit, which is right up the hall from me. We have an overwhelming amount of fraud cases, which sometimes tend to go into elder abuse type situations, but the elderly are a big victim of our fraud unit. They're taken advantage of quite a bit, and a lot of their life savings are taken away by scams. So that's what we focus on. That's why we take part in this program, to try to help the elderly, the seniors in our community, and help them live their lives out without having their savings stolen away from them.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Major. and Mr. Joe Gavalis.
Well, thank you for having the opportunity to speak to this group. I'm the law enforcement coordinator for the North Georgia Elder Abuse Task Force. I'm a retired federal agent that worked 30 years organized crime, labor racketeering. The task force encompasses very broadly construes North Georgia from Columbus to Macon to Augusta. And since we've been started, we've spoken to over 6,000 seniors, about over 55 law enforcement training meetings. We help coordinate law enforcement for educational purposes and investigative purposes. For 2 years, I had a show on web radio called the Safe Senior Hour, where we devoted talks just to things concerning seniors and particularly elder abuse matters. So look forward to the session today.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Joe. And I'm going to go to the next slide, maybe. Oh, did I? Nope. Now I am, hold on here. There we go. Next slide. So broad brush, what is elder abuse? I mean, what are when people hear elder abuse, if they haven't been sort of educated on the full scope of it, they have one particular thought or another particular thought or what have you. The way that we have addressed it here in both Cobb County, North Georgia, is physical and emotional, financial and institutional. So today, what we're going to do is focus on financial. I would say that sometimes these conversations can get obviously personal, right? Because something's going to click for you here and you say, man, I had that situation or whatever. You might have either yourself or you may have someone that you know is going through a situation right now that you say, I would like some help. And maybe you don't live in Cobb County, maybe you live in Georgia, right? But what I would recommend is that you send a note to George or one of the SUGA folks, administrators, with your information, and we can circle around rather than speaking about something that's very specific and detailed about either your life or about somebody else's, that we do that offline, and it will be handled. It will be followed up with, but just want to make sure that you understand that you don't need to necessarily share all of your personal information here on this particular session here. We don't want to promote any particular situations. But so in terms of elder abuse, man, kind of sad, right? 50% of all elder abuse cases, approximately, give or take, right, are perpetrated by family members or loved ones, someone that they know, someone that they trust, and that's tough to think about, right? You think, how could you do that? But it's happening every day. The other 50% are by professionals, and I mean professional. These people, go to school for crime. They really understand, and the folks that are with me here today, Joe, John, and Steve, all understand. They've seen all the background on this. I mean, these people are professional, and anytime that you've been either in a scam or you've gotten really close to one, you've got that feeling of how really attuned they are to hitting the right buttons and making you do something that you really shouldn't do. About half of all abuse cases are financial. It's about the money, right? So the others, obviously, physical, emotional, and institutional, we're not going to handle today. We're going to talk about the financials. So why are elders in such a predicament here in terms of abuse? They are one of the most vulnerable segments of our society. I think back in the 1960s, we had a big push about child abuse, right? before that, it was like, hey, look at this is my child. I can do whatever I want. Mind your own business, that type of thing. And then both society as well as the laws changed. It's like, hey, you can't do that to children, right? And so right now we're in the midst of kind of changing that in terms of elders, and more laws, as you'll see, are being enacted to help the elderly. They are typically a caring and trusting group. Now, you may have some folks that that you say they don't trust anybody, but in general, right? If you if you look at them, they come from a background of maybe they have grandchildren or what have you, but caring, trusting people. One big issue, and that we probably won't touch on a ton today, but is loneliness. Is, people get into trouble no matter what age you are when you're lonely, right? One thing or another, you can think of whatever weakness you might have when you're lonely. It exacerbates that, as well as allows people to take a look at that loneliness and do bad things, unfortunately. Elders also tend to respect authority figures and people of authority, people in uniform or sounding as if they are from a regulatory or a law enforcement background, right? They tend to, react to that. And that's what these people want, is for you to react to it. And elders also tend not to contact the police. Well, should I do that? Well, I shouldn't, maybe not, blah, blah, blah. And everything is relative, but they've also, seniors have tended to accumulate wealth, right? So what I tell everyone is that is relative, right? So for one person, their accumulated wealth might be $500. And that is what they have saved for their entire life. And that's what they've got. They've got a nest egg of $500. And someone may have a wealth of, $7 million, $10 million. For both, when that's taken away, when that goes to zero, that's a big issue, right? So these are some of the things. They are also more vulnerable because of disabilities, because of either mental, physical ailments or what have you. And so they tend to be targets of abuse. So one thing we wanted to see, right, everybody has heard this for years, and I think this may have started in New York City or something like that, but if you see something, say something. Right now, of course, what we do is say, whenever something feels incorrect to you, right? It just doesn't feel right. Call 911. 911 is a conduit to all of the resources that law enforcement has, or fire and emergency services and what have you. It's not just about sending blue lights rushing over to your house. It's about you saying, I don't feel comfortable with this situation. I need to report this to somebody. And they can then decide what resources should be brought to bear on your situation, right? So it might be an ambulance, it might be a police car that needs to come over with their flashing lights, or it could be one of Major Gainer's groups that comes over and takes some statements and takes some information from you. There is also a new app here in Georgia. If you see something, send something. So this is an app that you'd actually download on your phone or your pad of some sort, whatever, some mobile device. And that gives you an ability to actually determine what kind of issue that you have. Is it something that is a threat to you? Is it some sort of suspicious activity? Or is it a problem perhaps with a substance of some sort? So I wanted to share that with you again. At the end of this, we're going to have a whole resource section that we'll share, and that'll get out to everyone. This will be a part of that. So for the Cobb Elder Abuse Task Force, we'll go through this real quickly here. Seek participation and collaboration. Why is that important? Because elder abuse comes in a whole elaborate things. Things aren't just one thing. You know, someone stole $50 from me. That seems like it's fairly straightforward, but when you get into it, you find out that there were other issues at home. There may have been physical or emotional abuse in addition to that financial crime or what have you. So it's important for us, and we have reached out, and we have members of all sorts of different agencies, law enforcement, social, regulatory, people at the Gold Dome downtown on the task force to take a look at each of these situations and work together on this. So it's not just, hey, we just heard about $50. That's that. Let's just handle that. It's like, no, whoop, wait a minute. We heard about the $50, but it also relates to all these other things. Let's go ahead and get some other folks involved here and take a look at the whole situation. Part of what we're doing today, educate citizens about the resources that are available and how you should try to protect yourself, protect those of your loved ones and what have you, how you should be working with your financial institutions and what have you. And then also the people like John and Steve and all his teams, as well as many others, specifically, let's say in the police department, not related to these financial crimes that we'll talk about today, but have to do with a bunch of other elder abuse cases. These are all folks that are part of the elder abuse task force. So we're going to get into the meat of the matter here today that everyone's going to be kind of talking about. I will moderate this from the standpoint of you know, what's the law, what you should be doing. Those will be handled by ADA Tully and Major Gaynor. And some of the real life stories from North Georgia will be handled by Joe Gavalis. And we'll get to this, and this is we'll kind of see how this goes if we want to have, like at the end of each particular one, if there are particular questions or something, we might have people raise their hands. I'm not sure how that happens here on this system, but the first one is, and so any of these particular topics that we're going to handle could relate to a number of different types of scams, but what we're trying to focus on is what should you be aware of and how should you protect yourself as well as others. And so the first one is, do not answer the phone if it's a number that you do not know. And maybe Joe, you can get us kicked off here.
Well, this is the number one point we like to make to seniors or anybody. The way these people communicate with you is normally either through the cell phone, through your cell phone, or through the computer. So if you don't recognize the number, don't answer it. If it's important, they'll leave a message, and then you independently call the entity that they claim they represent. If they say, I'm calling from XYZ Bank, you find the number and call it back. I think Steve Gaynor's a group that investigate these frauds in Cobb County. And by the way, they're one of the best there are in the state of Georgia. My hat's off to them. They will tout that, you know, once you start communicating with somebody that you don't know, and one thing leads to another, that's how information gets out. So don't answer the phone if it's a number you don't know. We all have phone IDs. And if it says it's the sheriff's department, they'll leave a message, or the police department, you independently get the number, call it back. These people are professionals, they're professional scammers, and they have a way of, for very inexpensive manners, to set up any phone number they want. And so they can let you believe the governor's calling you. Steve, John, do you have any comments on that?
Sure. These scammers are very professional. They're very organized. They may be calling from a call center abroad and tell you, for example, the way it begins is, you know, hello, I'm from Microsoft. And I think all of you, some of you out in the audience have received the calls from Microsoft telling you that your computer is experiencing viruses or something like that. The There's another scam where they might say, hey, you know, I'm from Microsoft or something like that, and say, you know, did you buy computer virus protection or something like that? Well, you've overpaid us, and so we owe you money. And so, you know, whenever you give someone over the phone the ability to remote into your computer and communicate directly with a call center over the computer, that person can see every file within your computer, and they can begin stealing files from your computer, bank information, passwords, if you have it on a file, anything and everything about you, they can download immediately while they're doing this scam with you. And they know exactly what to say and how to say it to make you comfortable all the way through it. And it doesn't, you know, falling for one of these things is actually quite easy. And so it's easy to blame yourself in an instant like this, but they're very, very convincing, and they know what to say. They've been through this enough to know how to talk to people and to know what to say next if a victim may question them in a certain way or and so on. So they're very organized. You know, same thing with a jury duty scam or something like that. We have a warrant for your arrest, you know, or I'm from the IRS or so on. It's just like Joe said, you go yourself to the internet and find the actual number for the agency that claims to have been calling you. The sheriff's office isn't going to call you when they have an arrest warrant for you. They're not going to call you and tell you that. They're going to show up where you live or where you work and take you into custody. It's just that simple. They're not going to call you and tell you that.
We're going to go through a lot of these as we go down. There are 9 of these scam tips, so we'll go through it. It'll help. Steve, what do you, don't you concur? Don't answer the phone if it's a number you don't know.
Yes, I concur with all that. And I guess you're going to cover the romance scheme.
Yeah, we're going to go through it. Just look on their list as we go through here. Number 2, please.
Do not pay with cash cards. This is a huge one, and I would say that the folks that we have on with us today have been instrumental. You'll start to see around Cobb County a sign that says either that there's a limit to the number of cash cards that you can purchase at one time, or it's a warning sign that may say, hey, if you're being asked to purchase these cash cards for these particular reasons, think twice. You might want to call the authorities, right? So
yeah, I think it's important to note they're also known as gift cards. They're on racks in all the major stores, grocery stores, drugstores. Steve, don't you see this? This is the currency that we tell everybody of the professional criminals. You want to explain why?
This is the most frequent that we see. So they convince a senior to go into a store, buy these gift cards, and then call them back. The senior goes out to the car, scratches off the back, gives them the serial number on the back of that card, and that card is now cashed because they now have all the numbers they need. And that's the biggest scam that we're seeing happening with these gift cards. And thank goodness a number of stores like Target, Walmart are putting some kind of restrictions in place that when seniors come in or individuals in a whole come in and try to buy a large number of cards, they have to go through a manager or they meet some restrictions to the amount of purchase.
John, and you see how easy to get the money back once you give these people your cash card number on the back and they collect the money. How easy to get it back?
You can't get it back. That's the thing. It's the numbers on the back of the card that when you scratch those numbers off, once they have those numbers in their possession, they can liquidate, the scammers can liquidate the card and the money off the card almost immediately. And then the money's gone. It's routed from that account that's designated to that card with whoever sponsors that card, be it a bank or a business or what have you. And that money is now gone and it's liquidated to the scammer's account.
So again, don't pay with cash cards. Number 3, what's number 3?
And do not pay money to get money. Hey, you've won $10,000. All you need to do is to pay this fee of $1,000, and we're going to send you 10,000.
Yep, it's called upfront money, and they'll give you a lot of reasons. But Steve and John, I mean, you've seen these in active cases, correct?
That is correct. And if we get it quick enough, we're sometimes able to get some or all of the money back.
Right, and this usually runs with people who claim that you won a lottery, you won the Publishers Clearinghouse, and in order to get your money or to get that Mercedes, and these are true stories we can go through over and over again. Victims, they believe they won, but you've got to pay upfront money to get money. So this is another guide. Don't pay money to get money. You concur, John?
Yes, absolutely. Anytime that you are being told that you've won this number of dollars or this prize or whatever, but you only have to pay the taxes to get that prize, that should be a red flag in anyone's mind to say, wait a minute, hold on. If you're going to give me something, you know, if you win a prize, that the person giving you the prize may have to issue you a 1099 form, you know, and you'll be assessed taxes off of what you've won, but they're not going to charge you that up front. What the government is owed, that goes to the government. And so anytime you're being paid, you have to pay a fee for winning something, that should be an automatic red flag. Plus,
It's not
the
only
thing is,
it's for grants. I mean, there's a grant scam out there. There's employment scams. I think Steve and John, you've seen those. And so don't pay money to get money. Number 4.
Oh, we'll just on the pay money to get money, we'll just do one that's come up quite a bit here. It's like, hey, how can you, you know, and it may be, hey, you're retired. How do you make a little extra money on the side? You know, we've got something that you can do at home. All you're going to do is fill out these spreadsheets. You're going to fill out this paperwork, kind of collate things, tidy them up for us, and then send them back. And then they send you a check, indeed bogus, and then they come back and say, well, we sent you too much money. Instead of us docking your pay for next week, why don't you just send us a check back for the difference? But the check that they originally sent you is bogus. It will bounce. There is no money behind that check. So what they're really doing is just having you waste your time and then send them money. It's just kind of an elaborate scheme, but it works. Do not let strangers in your homes. We've got a lot of stories about that one.
And why is this? There are people that travel around the communities, go door to door and want to help you in things. Steve, you want to explain some of them? And I can think, I'll just name one, the roof scams, driveway scams.
Tree cutters.
Pardon?
Tree cutters.
Tree cutters, pine straw scams. They knock on your door, especially if you're living alone. Don't ever let anybody in your house. And the reason why, that's your defense. You're in the house. Do you gentlemen concur with that?
absolutely. They may seek to distract you while someone else goes through the rest of your home. It may be something like that, or it may be to sell you pine straw, and then they'll have like an inflated number of bales that they used on your home, and very, very difficult because they're going to give you a large bill that you never expected, and they're going to be very forceful with you about paying that bill for pine straw because we just laid down pine straw at your home. But then they'll say that they used 60 bales or 70 bales or something, some crazy amount that would never fit on a pickup truck or whatever they're driving to begin with. And so when you're there, and most people don't like confrontation, and these people are very good at confrontation about, hey, you need to pay me, and so on. You know, same thing for like we've got extra asphalt for a job that we had. We can pave your driveway. We can, fix your roof and go up on the roof and use a hammer and well, you need this and you need to pay me and so on. It's all kinds of things like that. And they're very, very good at being forceful with people and getting their foot in the door.
They're professionals, and the sheriff's department is very good at working these cases. I think, Steve, you see a lot of these cases, don't you?
We do, and I think the PD probably sees the other side of that, which is they draw the senior out to look at the tree or the roof while one of the other people sneaks into the house. Because seniors, let's face it, are very, they want to help. They want to be friendly. They'll go with the person easily, look at the problem. They want to see it themselves, and that gives them the opportunity to go in and rip off everything from the house that they can possibly carry out.
Yep. Don't let strangers in your home. Number 5, please.
So everybody, do not let people into your home, and they'll and the scenario changes really, really quick, right? The most personable, either young man or young lady, right, comes to the home. Oh, they seem so nice. Oh, they have the truck out there. Oh, everything, everything looks wonderful. Everyone's nice. Everyone's warm. Everyone's trying to help you until the tide turns. And then that's when that other side of them comes out. It's very aggressive, makes you feel very uncomfortable, and you will end up losing money or valuables from your home. And this is a good one. I have a story from one of our presentations, but this is always a good one. And you can think about it, when you watch TV or whatever, it's like, how often do you see on TV the police or the sheriff called the perpetrator, right? The person that they were looking for to let them know that they were coming, right? So the law enforcement, first of all, it's probably going to be a bogus number, the caller ID that comes up on your screen for your telephone. But they don't call to let you know that they're coming, right? I know that makes common sense, but when you hear this on the phone, it sounds so real and so convincing. And that there's probably another part of it is, hey, we're about to arrest you, and then go ahead and get those cash cards, or do something else, or let me into, get this money over to me, or what have you. So I think you guys have some stories about this one, but yeah, they don't call, law enforcement does not call to let you know.
I'll tell you, in my 30 years, I would never call anybody telling them come to arrest them. Steve, who retired from the PD, is now sheriff's office. Is that your routine policy to call people?
No, we do not. We do not call anybody, and we do not call anybody if we have somebody's relative in jail to tell them to bail their grandson out, they need to send us X amount of dollars.
Right, right. And I think we need to remember, and I think everybody else, if I got a call or you get a call that the police coming to arrest you, well, I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be finding my lawyer, because I don't know about you all, I wouldn't want the bracelets, those steel handcuffs on. They're not comfortable. So remember that. When somebody does that, it's a bogus threat, and you independently call the professional in your area, the police, the sheriff's department, and say, you just been called. Are you coming to arrest me? Or there's somebody's about to threaten me to arrest me. Is that you, or whatever? Is that your advice, Steve and John?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Good.
And I would just to say on one of the, on one or all of these, right? It's going to feel uncomfortable for you if you do it the first time when somebody is actually doing this to you, right? You hear someone, it's that person said it was Major Gaynor from the SO department. Oh my God, right? I got to do this. It's an authority figure. It's the sheriff's office. They're coming to arrest me. So one of the things that I recommend, I think we all do, is to try to practice some of these things just to make it feel a slight bit more comfortable for you. So when it actually happens, you have the correct response, right? So practice this with a family member. We don't, none of us like hanging up on people. We're polite. We don't hang up on, well, some of us don't, right? Maybe Joe Gavalis does, but just kidding. But we don't like to hang up on people. We don't like to be rude. We let them finish their statement, oh, one more thing, right? No. You got to practice saying no, practice some of these events before they take place. And here's on the same lines, if you haven't played the lottery, you're probably not going to win, right? So you can't win if you didn't play.
And this goes for anything, Publishers Clearinghouse, which is a really big scam right now going on in North Georgia, all over the country. And you talk to people who lose money and said, I never got my prizes. And you ask them, did you play? And they'd say no. And they say, well, how can you win a contest if you never entered? Steve, don't you guys see this too? These scams like that?
We do see this one a little bit, yes. Not as much as some of the others we've discussed, but this one, yes.
Right. And John, what's your thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean, you just, even if you're talking to someone and they have that initial conversation with you saying that you won, you start giving up personal information, because they may or may not know who they're talking to over the phone. The moment you start giving up personal information, name, address, birth date, or anything like that, that leads to identity fraud. And so you want to, curtail your conversations with these people as quick as possible as well. If you didn't enter the contest at all, you can't win. And so that's a huge thing that you need to look out for. You need to really guard your personal information as well.
Yes, and that leads us to number 7, which is a lot of times, and again, these are professionals, and you think when you read these, all of these, 9 bullet points here, you go like, this just makes common sense. Of course, I'm not going to do that, right? But when it comes to someone being pretty aggressive with you and very professional in how they ask it, and it all makes sense, right? This is, like John was saying, this is Microsoft. Oh my God, well, Microsoft, that's like my computer, right? This is Apple, this is your iPhone, this is a sheriff's department. You've got to give me this information. But maybe Joe, you can through a few of the ways that people ask for
financial. I think we go through these, and a lot of these are dealing with so-called imposters. They're posing as a Social Security agent, an IRS agent, a sheriff's investigator, a U.S. Marshal, the FBI. They try everything, and the whole idea is they want to just get your ID, I think as Steve said. And John, they'd love to get this information, because this information is the key to everything else and what you can do with it. Steve, do you want to address some of that?
I think one of the other things we see is your bank. This is Wells Fargo calling you, and we've got an issue with your account, and can you just confirm your account number and your password? And they'll give them that information.
Yep.
And that's one of the scams we do see.
Right, and just stop and think. If somebody calls you and say they're from the Social Security Administration, well, could you give me your Social Security number, or the first 6 digits, or the last 4? Well, you ever stop and think, they're with Social Security, why are they asking you for your numbers? It's all they need to do. They just want to open up this window of your financial information, and it's great when they're in that position, because now they have the opportunity to be you. And you can look at examples where people have assumed identity and have bought homes, have invested into different things, and the Sheriff's Department deals with this. And John, I know you've seen this too, haven't you?
Yes, you cannot give any kind of information out over the phone. Please, if anybody out in the audience has not already frozen their credit with all 3 credit houses, please go ahead and do that. It's very important that you do that because I'll just give you an example of one scam. A gentleman had a license from the Department of Driver Services headed to his mailbox. He lived in an apartment complex, and it was a mass mailbox with a lot of mailboxes in there. That was broken into. His ID was stolen. And if you think about any of us walking around, the scammer was able to appropriate this gentleman's ID and buy 3 vehicles from 2 different local dealerships, just with that driver's license. And so, I mean, I wouldn't be able to be approved for 3 vehicles, but the scammer was, and the scammer used fraudulent printed out checks, cashier's checks from Wells Fargo that he dummied up on his computer to pay for all 3 vehicles. And so it's just, and then when the actual victim was called by the police, you know, do you have a vehicle in your name by this vehicle? He said, no, absolutely not. I don't have a vehicle like that. And so then the police began to investigate that case. So long story, just to relate a minor point, but I mean, please don't give any financial information. Please shred your mail. Even if you don't think it's important, if it has your name and address on it, shred it. If it has an account number, shred it. Don't let anything go out of your mail that scammers could take advantage of. One thing that's not on that we go on these general lists, please do not put mail in your mailbox and put the little flag up. Okay? If you put a check inside of an envelope and put that little flag up, and put that in your mailbox, there was a time that you could do that and you'd be relatively safe. But what that flag is now alerting to, and I just saw one on my street a couple of weeks ago, is, hey, there's something important inside this mailbox that I've left for the post office. The scammer just needs to see that flag and go and get it. And on our checks that we pay via mail, which you shouldn't, has the routing number and the account number for your account. You've also given them a copy of your signature and everything else. We've even seen in Cherokee County, I had a case where someone actually had an old key for the blue box for our local post office and went into that box to get mail that was dropped off outside of the post office. I mean, so I know it's a pain, but what I would advise is going into the post office and dropping your mail off inside the post office. There's just so many, unfortunately, so many sad cases where scammers have taken advantage of people.
Two quick points, John, and our group. One, you know, we're talking about people who initiate calls to you. Obviously, you've got to conduct your life. You're going to call your bank, but you have a number to call. You're going to call your insurance agent. You're going to call your doctor's office. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when people out of the blue call you. Number
Right.
2, we're talking about mail, and that's a good point, John. And there is the U.S. Postal Service offers for free a service called Informed Delivery. And if you don't have it, look at it. It's on the internet. Look under the United States Postal Service. And what it does every morning, I get at 8 o'clock, I get a picture of all the mail that is supposed to be delivered to me that's in the postal system that will be delivered to me that afternoon. Why is that important? We'll see if something's coming from a bank, if there's a credit card, something else is coming. And if I don't get it, it's disappeared somewhere, and I can start the process by dealing with the police or the sheriff's office, and in many cases, the postal inspectors. It's free. Look at it. I don't know if anybody on the call has it, but it is a great tool called Informed Delivery, and it's on the internet with the U.S. Postal Service.
And speaking of the internet, don't click on attachments. And most recently, if you get a text on your phone and you think, boy, that number either isn't familiar, the name isn't familiar. Why don't I just click on it to find out? Because I'm kind of curious as to what this is. Don't do that. Delete it. If someone really needs to get in touch with you, they can get in touch with you and let you know that they're going to send something. But if you don't understand what the attachment is, it's from someone you don't know, rather than kind of query that and say, hey, let's spin the roulette wheel and figure out what this is. And then again, malicious malware, spyware, and what have you can be loaded either onto your computer or onto your phone.
Have you seen that, Steve or John?
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it just yet through a text, but it's definitely possible.
Yes, I get quite a few of them from AT&T telling me I paid my AT&T bill on time. I've won a prize. Click on this link.
Mm.
And the nature of the sheriff. Okay.
But you'll see it all over, and the people that do it. And the idea of the malware is very important. It goes in and they will basically be reading everything in your computer. They'll watch every time you get mail. It's we like to say when we start our talks throughout North Georgia, computers and cell phones are great tools, and obviously our lives would have been changed. But remember, computers and cell phones can create the best liars in the world. You have no idea who's on the other side of the computer sending you the message or who's calling you, because the number that they say they're calling from or the person or the entity is not necessarily real. So remember that. And again, if you remember that, it makes it easier to deal with this, because the computer puts a heck of a barrier between you and the person who's actually doing it. You concur with that, Steve, John?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was going to add that if you've ever, and most probably people on this session probably haven't done this, but if you were to say, hey, I got this call, it said it was the sheriff's office, but I did exactly what they said, I called back, but I wanted to report that. Oh, they're sophisticated enough that it actually looks like it's coming from the sheriff's department. In this case, as Major Gaynor says, it looks like it came from AT&T. It's hard to go backwards because these people are so sophisticated, and they change their telephone numbers, they change their IP addresses,
Right.
they change their email addresses. Important for you to stop it right at the beginning, right? Don't answer it, and that sort of thing. And now to the last one, we'll open up for some questions and comments and different things like that. But big in North Georgia specifically, but across the country, and this is a big one, is, and these things don't happen necessarily overnight, right? This is about sending money to a person that you haven't met. But you may actually feel, people, have gone on dates because they've met online or something like that. And then they show up and they say, man, that isn't the person I thought I was coming to meet. But these romantic relationships can be garnered over a great deal of time. But when you ask someone, like, hey, you're sending money to that person, have you ever met them? Ask your family member, your friend or whatever. It's like you're sending money to them. Have you met them? It sounds like a fairly silly question to ask, but this is, again, a very, very sophisticated, a long-term scam that happens, and people are garnering your trust, enough trust, and as if you really did have a relationship with them, and they've said, now, could you send me money? I need help with this. I need help with my house. I'll come and visit you if I have enough money for the airfare. I'll do this or I'll do that. So Joe, you've, I think, had a lot of cases.
No, I just want to say this is what's known as the romance scams. You might read about it. They're very prevalent. It's the only scam that there's no urgency to what they're doing. As Jeff said, They lull you into a relationship. They're on a script. It's just like being at with a movie. They have a script. You answer, you say this, they say that. It usually starts with a dating site, or they see something on the internet and they contact you. Most of these crimes are committed by people who are overseas. People want to know, does it really happen here in North Georgia? Well, I can tell you, north of Metro Atlanta, right now since March, we have 7 cases where people have given out over 2.5 million in payments to romance scams to people they've never met. And remember what we just said, the people behind the computer you're talking to, you have no idea who they are. And usually they'll try to really enhance this relationship with a picture. Remember, pictures can be whatever they want them to be, and they're almost never the person that you think you're talking to. And it happens everywhere. John and Major, has it happened here in your jurisdictions?
John, I'll yield to you first.
Pardon?
I'll let John go first.
I'll yield to Major Gainer first. Go ahead.
All right, thanks, John. Yes, this is probably one of the major scams we do see happening. I'm trapped over in Afghanistan. I'm a prince. I've got millions and millions of dollars tied up in the bank, but I can't get to it. And they just keep dragging you along and getting you to really, the person really falls in love with them. And we have one particular case where the family can't even convince the mom to stop sending this individual money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and she just continues to send it to him because she won't believe that he's not real and he really doesn't love her.
Yes. I mean, I have seen cases where, and those are the very saddest cases, where the Secret Service will try to attempt to convince this person that this is a scam. They won't listen. I've had law enforcement and adult protective services try to tell this person that this is a scam, and they won't listen. And I mean, the folks that are victims of these usually are completely all in sometimes, and will not see it, and they will drain a significant amount of their retirement money to keep sending it to this person that they think they know. And it's generally speaking, they're not even sending it to the person that's actually calling them. They're sending it to another portion of the group of scammers that are long-term scammers. These are where you call the person and spend a lot of time on the phone with them. And it's really establishing a significant relationship with them and talking to them. Just very, very sad.
Well, just to let you know how professional these people are, they're divided up into functions, just like if you were running a business. They've got the person to contact you, the person that lulls you into this relationship. Then they have somebody, as John was just saying, where they'll tell you to send the money, or they'll wire the funds, or buy cash cards. They pick it up, and then it gets moved on to another entity, and then ultimately it gets sent overseas. It's a sad story, and the more you hear about it, but it's up to you all out there. There's not enough law enforcement or professionals out there to fight this for everybody, because to hear about it. If you hear of something, a neighbor who said, oh, I've got this great relationship, just exactly the way the major said, that they used to be in Afghanistan. Now the big scam is they're working on an oil rig somewhere. There's been an accident. I need money. Please call the professionals, call the sheriff's department if you're in Cobb County or wherever you live, or the police department or adult protective services. Please try to get help for the people, because you're the ones that hear about it, and only the professionals can help. And sometimes they don't want to be helped. Maybe they have excess money. I was with a matter where this woman paid out over $550,000, and the loss didn't matter to her. She was just offended that she was conned. Well, I don't know how many other people, but she told us she was embarrassed to tell anybody else. was finally found out through somebody she confided in. So it's very important, and I think law enforcement will agree, and the DA's office. The quicker you get help, the chances are you might be able to help a friend, a loved one, or yourself.
And with that, we're going to actually have Joe speak to one other issue. I'm going to show you a list of official sites, videos, brochures, and different things like this. One of the things I recommend, always go to an official site for this information. It's the state of Georgia. It's going to be Cobb County. It's going to be this, let's say the city of Marietta. It might be the Internal Revenue Service. Go to the official sources. And then one thing we just wanted to make sure that everyone knew, this has less to do with financial crimes, but more to do about being good neighbors is, and Joe can speak to, make sure that you're taking a look.
Yeah, we always try to end it. It's very important, and I'm glad Steve's on, is that as a neighbor, you know what your other neighbors or loved ones are doing, that especially people who live alone. In this day and age, a lot of times their children have moved away and they live in a house. You might not know them very well, but you'll know their habits. They go walk the dog. In one case, every morning they open the blinds to their kitchen. But if you see something unusual, like in one case here, the blinds weren't open. In another case, they didn't see the person walking the dog for over a day and they walk them religiously. And if you go try to go and if you have concerns like that, there's something's unusual happening, please call the law enforcement. I'll turn it over to Steve. Law enforcement has something called a welfare check. Steve, you want to explain that, please?
So if there's a concern about a resident or a neighbor or some kind of situation in your neighborhood, you can call into the local agency and request what Joe said, a welfare check of a residence, of an individual, of a family. So if there's, like Joe said, something's not quite right, it doesn't take us much time to assign somebody to eventually get out there and do a welfare check to make sure. In the seniors cases, we have a lot where they've fallen down. That commercial, I've fallen down and I can't get up. That does happen. That's not made up for advertisement. That actually does happen. And a welfare check has saved a lot of lives by us going to find somebody stuck on the ground and get a medical attention.
And we always say the sheriffs and the police would rather find somebody in their kitchen drinking coffee saying I'm okay than find them laying on the ground for 6 hours in pain. And that was an actual case. Somebody fell in the bathroom. If it wasn't for the police officer who kicked in the door and able to find the woman and barely here, she probably wouldn't be here today. So please don't be afraid to call law enforcement and express your concerns and let them decide. I think that's correct, Steve. They'll decide when they'll get to it. They're not going to do a homicide, drop off a homicide to go check, but they'll check eventually, correct?
That is correct. It goes in the queue.
Yeah.
It's a low-level call, but it will get taken care of. It will get checked. Somebody will be assigned to it as staffing allows.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jeff.
Don't be embarrassed to ask. Don't be embarrassed to report something. Don't be embarrassed to ask for help. Don't be embarrassed if you just don't really know, you're not quite sure, but you think there might be something wrong. If you see something, do say something. It helps everybody. It's probably help yourself, help your loved ones, your family members, your neighbors, and whatever. So with that, George and Lauren, I will have you.
Okay, we could go for about another 10 minutes with questions. We recommend everyone to turn their video on so the team can see who's asking the questions, and we'll use the raise the hand function.
And if we could,
Gail,
yeah,
can you unmute yourself?
Is it me? Is it my turn?
Yes, it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a quick question about mail. I have lived in my house for 25, 30 years, so I get bucket loads of mail that has my name and address on it. And I can't shred everything. I recycle all of that, but I can't shred it all. And my sense is that anybody can get your name and address very easily from the internet or whatever, that I have never considered that making me vulnerable just because it has my name and address on it. You really
Well, if it
think,
has any information as far as like, say, Target, if you have a Target account or anything like that on there, that's what I'm principally concerned about. Because people, unfortunately, scammers will go through the trash.
oh yeah, they
They
dumped
will
my
go-
recycle out in the middle of the street.
Right,
That's when I got a locking mailbox.
right. Very good, very good.
Emily, you're up next.
Yeah, two questions. Do these same offices that are in Cobb County exist in most counties in Georgia? And number two, what is your opinion on using payment methods such as Venmo and PayPal?
So every agency, whether it be the sheriff's office or whether it be the local police department, does have individuals who will go do welfare checks. So that benefit is available statewide. Venmo and the other accounts, I'm not a big Venmo user, but I believe it has control factors on it that allow you to know exactly where your money's going. Maybe John or somebody can answer better on that one.
There's a new scam where if someone comes to you and says, hey, may I borrow your phone? They'll immediately go into your Venmo app if you have one and start transferring money out of that while they're using your phone. And so it's important that if you don't have I don't think there's facial recognition with Venmo and Cash App and things like that. So if you hand over your phone to somebody and it's unlocked, they're going to be able to get into that app if you don't know the person. And so that's really dangerous. I personally don't use Cash App or Venmo because I've just heard bad stories from banks about reversing fraudulent charges on things like that. Once you send that money, it's gone and it's not coming back. And so there's not a protection level that you have with like a credit card or something like that. So that worries me a great deal. And so I don't, yeah. And yes, I don't believe you should send checks through the mail. I know that someone just posted that question written. Whenever you send a physical check through the mail, and I know that, look, I'm old enough to know, remember that when this is how bills are paid, generally speaking, you take your light bill, you write out a check, you put it in the mail, and it's just that simple. Every time you send a check through the mail, it has your routing number, your account number, your name and address. Someone can start you're basically handing out your bank information to anybody that can access that envelope.
Dave?
Dave?
Can you talk to them about ftc.gov with identity theft?
Federal Trade Commission, right?
Yeah, there's a website if you got an identity theft and it goes through a whole bunch of steps. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yes, if you're a victim of identity theft, you can fill that out when you become a victim of identity theft. But it's also more important to go to your local law enforcement agency and let them know that and how you've been a victim. That's also important.
So in Cobb County, the sheriff's office handles that, and you have to come for identity theft. You have to come to the office at 185 Roswell Street to confirm that you're actually that person. So that's the only way we take identity theft reports.
And everyone, I'm going to have to apologize. I have a meeting at with the Cobb Police on a case, and so I'm going to have to depart at this time. But if you have any questions that I feel confident, Major Gaynor and Joe Gavalas and Jeff can answer questions. But if anyone has a question that they'd like to ask the DA's office, Jeff can forward it to me, and I will respond directly if that's all right. Thank you very much for everyone attending. I'm going to have to depart now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For being with us, Mr. Tully.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Coral?
There was a list given of various sites that one can contact for assorted problems. Could that be put in some sort of format that we can either get it by email or copy it more easily than from the screen?
Yes, I was planning on to George and Lauren. And I think they can distribute that after the class.
Oh,
Right.
great. Thank you very much.
Marty and Sandy.
Hi, Sandy. I apparently was involved in at least an attempted identity theft where somebody had enough of my identity. But there was a strange sequence. I received snail mail, obviously some sort of Xeroxed something or other, that came from Chase Bank saying we were unable to open the account you requested, which I had not. I had not applied for an account. And I called the Chase fraud unit and they said there was no activity on my name. And the reason was they were unable to verify my credit information with my credit bureau. I have a freeze on all of my the 3 credit bureaus that just stays there. But even in this letter, there was absolutely no suggestion that I contact, that I send information. So it was snail mail. It was clearly not phishing. It was clearly fraud. And I have no idea what I'm supposed to do from here, other than what I've already done with the bank. And I don't know, is this already evidence that somebody has taken my identity and now they're just going to keep trying things, or what do I do? Or what am I involved in here?
Well, since you already have freezes on your account, they're not going to be able to do anything with it. They may have attempted with this one attempt, but they won't be able to go any farther and they'll move on to another person.
Does that mean they had my social security number?
I couldn't tell you what they might have had. They might have just made an inquiry to try to open an account based on maybe your name and driver's license number. To just try to open an account and then try to purchase things with that account, your credit history. There's no telling, since there's nothing really for us to go with that letter. And that letter, I don't know, could be from Chase, it might not, I don't know.
Chase had no record of sending me anything, so
Okay.
I was just curious. So there's not a big need for me to worry about this at this point.
No, since you already have the freeze on, there's nothing to worry about. You've frozen everything that they could get to.
Okay.
And I just have a quick comment. I was 25 years with the United States Attorney's Office in the Northern District of Georgia in the fraud unit. And I'm horrified that I was a victim of the pine straw scheme. I just thought that was a one-off.
Right.
But this has been really helpful, even for someone like me as a professional. I've learned something today. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service. 25 years.
Thank you, Joe. What agency were you with?
Was with the Office of Organized Crime and Labor Racketeering. I worked out of the strike force, if you remember when they were there. Organized crime.
I remembered your name. Good to see you. Thank you.
Well, you all be safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Joy, I think you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I just went through an exhausting and horrible process of signing up for ID Me, which the IRS now is going to require. And in the process of doing this, I had to send them copies of various IDs, including a picture ID. But to do so, I had to take, on some documents, I had to take a physical picture of it and then send it, or I had to scan it in. So it's on my computer. Maybe it's in Google Photos. And to me, that seems like an ideal way of stealing my identity. And yet this was required. Now, as far as ID Me, they called me to verify it was me. Of course, it was a few minutes before midnight, but they did call to verify and I had to show them the documents and had to show them my face. But these documents are now out in cyberspace. What do I do about it?
I don't know, Steve, I'll be honest with you, I haven't really heard that much about ID Me, but I'm certainly going to check on it. And I mean, somebody to call you at midnight is highly unusual. I don't understand that.
That actually was legit, supposedly.
Right.
Because as I said, I was told to sign up by my accountant and it seemed like IRS Gov sent me there.
Okay.
So
Probably-
I'm just
it's
worried
probably
about,
for
I had to
security.
put this stuff into cyberspace.
Good point. I'll be glad to check it and get back through Jeff and.
I would really appreciate that because it really bothered me.
Okay.
Mary?
Is it safe to give your driver's license to your doctor's office? So many of them want to photocopy your driver's license, and I either tell them no, which I've been turned away from offices for refusing that. What I now do is make my own copy of my driver's license and black out the number, and then I'll let them have that copy.
The number's what they want though, because that enables them to trace you if you don't pay.
I'm not going to give it to them.
Okay. This will have to be our last question. Somebody put in chat that her sister in South Georgia was hit with the oil rig scam. So it is happening to members, to relatives and so forth. And we really appreciate Jeff, Joe, John, and Steve for your dedication and for your presentation today. And we'll ask everyone to unmute so we can thank you with a round of applause.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Funny. Turn it off.
You're still not allowing me to unmute.
Yes, you will.
We are.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you.
yeah.
a while for it to go through.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank
For
you
the
all.
people that are left on, there was a couple of pieces of information put into the chat that you might want
I
to.
guess you have to
So-
send everything that has a check to the post office.